maybe NASCAR's most hyped up season in quite some time. Probably the most hyped up season in the last 10 years. It has been ruined by just constant bad luck and so much just. Oh, I don't even know how to describe it. And I didn't want to make a video about the Larson topic because there's so many others, but I figured I would just include it in this broader video of how NASCAR's 2020 season has been ruined by so much bad luck and just, oh my god, just everything has gone wrong for NASCAR in 2020. So, entering the season, it was like, hey, final year of the Gen 6, let's go out with a bang. NASCAR then was like, and we're introducing a short track package because the races there sucked in 2019. So, hey, here's some shorter spoilers. They'll make the racing better at those tracks. Everyone's like, yes, whatever. We're gonna have this bigger spoiler package for the bigger tracks, and we're gonna have this lower downforce package for the tracks that need it. Oh my god, this is gonna be great. Jimmy Johnson announced he's retiring, so one final chance to go for a championship, and much less one final chance to just go out there and win a race. Um, so many different storylines coming in. And then it's all going to kick off with the Daytona 500, the first race of the 2020s in NASCAR. And just, oh my gosh, it's supposed to be the best 500 in years, best 500 since like maybe 2014. Um, it's supposed to be fantastic with this package that we're using, with the big runs in the draft and stuff like that. Then we get to the 500 and it's a decent race up to the end. Then they start crashing a lot, and then obviously we know what happens with Ryan Newman getting launched into the air and having to go to the hospital and waiting hours to know if he was alive or dead. And obviously he's doing well, continuing his rehabilitation, and might be able to return to the car once we get back to racing, depending on how long this break lasts for. So already there was this momentum entering the season with the Daytona 500. You had a good speed weeks leading up to it. The clash was very, very bad. But then you get to the duels. The duels were fantastic. You get to the truck race. The truck race was maybe the best race of the weekend. The Xfinity race was a lot better, eons better than the 2019 one. Not only that, you're getting to the 500. The President of the United States is going to be there to give the command and ride around for the pace laps leading the field. That's a huge deal. You have Dale Jr. waving the green flag. And then rain. Rain ruined any chance that NASCAR had of just upping the ratings greatly for that race with so much, hype around it, so much press around it because the president being there. So many more people were going to tune in and watch. Apparently, like, the ratings were supposed to be jacked up, according to Adam Stern. Like, the initial ratings for that race were jacked up. And then it got rained to Monday, uh, which just sucks, That's that, just horrible. Um, you then go to Las Vegas and you have one of your best races with the new package. You have crazy restarts all day long. You have a crazy final restart, but it ends under yellow. You go to Fontana, once again a track which has normally been good, and it's once again another great race with the package. And you're like, man, oh man, so much momentum to start the season. We're gonna go to Phoenix now. We're gonna start out with the low downforce package. You go there, and it's one of the better Phoenix races that we've seen. It was an amazing race, very, very competitive, bumping and banging. They were able to get to each other's bumpers without getting stuck in dirty air. There's so much momentum for NASCAR. The first four races were good. There's huge storylines. Just all this stuff. Good racing. We're gonna go to now Atlanta and Homestead, and we're gonna put on some more good 1.5 mile races. Two of the best 1.5 milers on the schedule. And then COVID-19 comes, and it cancels. Well, it suspends the season for now, pushing it back. We still haven't had a race since Phoenix. Thankfully, that was the last race we had because it was at least good. But all that hype coming into the season, and all that hype we had during the first four races of the season, one of the better starts of the season we've had in a long, long time. It just kind of got thrown out. It's gone now. And who knows when we'll start again? June? July? Will it be late May? No one knows. And it's just kind of stalled out now. No one really remembers the first four races of the season, how they were good and how much hype there was. But even after that, NASCAR's like, you know what? We're going to keep the hype going. And they said, iRacing. iRacing is it's as close to a simulation as you're gonna get of any other sport. You cannot have something like this in the NBA or the NHL or any other sport that got put on hold. This is as close to real as it's gonna get in terms of just esports in general. This is as close as it's gonna get. So NASCAR is like, let's do this. We're gonna run some races. It's gonna be a nice, fun thing we do. It's gonna be awesome. The first race was a success. Homestead, 100 lap dash. There's competitiveness. You have drivers going for broke. You have drivers like Parker Kligerman, Garrett Smithley, Timmy Hill, Dale Earnhardt Jr. is back. All these drivers that you're like, huh, who are these guys? And they're up there racing with drivers like Denny Hamlin, William Byron, Alex Bowman, um, and all these other drivers. And huge success. There were drivers in there that you're like, man, didn't really think we would, see from them. There's drivers from like the Xfinity series, the Truck series that are, they're trying to just race there for fun. It ends in a photo finish between Denny Hamlin and Dale Earnhardt Jr. Jr. sliding sideways off turn four. Hamlin on the outside gets clear and wins the race at the start finish line. An amazing race. The ratings for the race insane. Broke a record for esports, the most watched like esports event ever. Um, and then they're like, okay, we're gonna continue this momentum. Fox did a great job with the broadcast. They're now gonna be like, hey, we're gonna air it both on Fox and FS1. So now there's two channels you can watch it on. Um, Texas, you go and it's a good race again. Bump and run for the win. Timmy Hill wins the race. Timmy freaking Hill won the race. Um, and he goes in there, bumps William Byron out of the way. Drivers are coming through the field on the final restarts. There's crashes, there's everything. Ratings are up even more than Homestead. It's like, man, this is insane. But then sponsors saw they saw the success of the first two, and maybe some drivers who shouldn't have been there were like, the sponsors were like, we want you to do this. We want you on the racetrack in this car because it was a success. People are watching it, so now we need to be a part of it. So maybe some drivers that didn't want to do it are now being forced to do it by their sponsors. And so that's then for Bristol, put in the sour crowd. And at Bristol, Bubba Wallace wrecked early, rage quits, shuts off his computer. He's like, meh, whatever, this is stupid. Rage quits. Blue Emu sponsoring him says, we don't like quitters, we like racers. Bubba, you're no longer one of our partners. Blue Emu fires Bubba Wallace on the spot. So now you have a driver that has lost their sponsor over a simulation, not even real life. Just, obviously the sponsor probably paid to be there and do that. So, they obviously didn't get what they wanted. You don't just quit on a sponsor like that. So Bubba Wallace has lost a sponsor, Richard Petty Motorsports, which, by the way, Richard Petty, a big spokesperson for Blue Emu. Can they possibly try and get the relationship back together? I don't know. I mean, Blue Emu went out there and said a lot of stuff about Bubba. They were pretty pissed. I know that they said, hey, we're going to sponsor Landon more now because Landon's a racer. He's not a quitter. So if you thought that was the worst thing that esports or iRacing could have done, on Sunday, Landon Castle's like Landon Castle and some friends one night were on iRacing, and they went to the Monza Oval, which is a really high banked like race circuit. I think it's like 3 and some change miles long. Insane racetrack, and they went there with cup cars unrestricted. They're flying around the corners. They're doing setups to where they handle through the corners, but on the straightaway they're actually wrecking loose. So that was really funny to see. And then Lancaster was like, this would be a fun thing to do with like a ton of like real NASCAR people or just like real kind of racing series people. So you create an open invitational. Hey, come race the Monza Oval in cup cars unrestricted. It's going to be a fun time. So they get a lot of drivers to do it. Landon Cass, obviously one of them. They have Alan Bestwick up there commentating in the booth, which is insane that Alan Bestwick, and I believe Alex Hayden was there as well, commentating with, what's that, Podium Esports or something like that? Those people that stream the esports, they had them with those guys. So that was a huge boost for that. They streamed it on like the NASCAR YouTube channel. They had drivers streaming. Unfortunately, they had drivers streaming. During some practice races, Kyle Larson, I think, is trying to talk to his spotter. if I had to guess. So, um, this is something that has happened on iRacing before. In fact, it actually happened the day prior. Dale Earnhardt Jr. was racing the iRacing IndyCar race, right? And Willpower, outspoken Willpower during these races. He got his chat muted in the first race, and then this race is bugging the official to call yellow so that it's not a strategy ending, and so that those people that wrecked didn't, get the advantage for wrecking. And then the official's like, no, we're not calling it unless there's a giant pileup. So then Will was like, oh, well, someone caused a pileup then. And after the race was all pissed off, he's like, yeah, we got screwed. They didn't know when to throw yellow or not. Da 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 da. Dale Jr., meaning to speak to his crew chief slash spotter Steven Steffen, accidentally, instead of choosing the team channel in iRacing, goes to then talk to all the drivers and says something like, well, you would think, they would know their fuel window and then they would pit anyway. And says out loud, and then, whatever, and then he says some more things like, yeah, I just don't get why they wouldn't have pitted. Says that over to all the drivers. So Willpower, who is pissed, is probably even more pissed now. Drivers that lost it on fuel are probably pissed, because here comes this NASCAR guy that comes in and is just outspoken against them and calling them basically, idiots, calling them out accidentally. And so it's very easy to make that mistake. And his crew chief was like, "Hey, I don't know if you knew, but you said that to all the drivers." And then Dale's like, "Oh, did I say anything bad?" Um, so Kyle Larson probably trying to talk to his team channel and not to all the drivers is saying like, "Oh, you can't hear me? Like, you can't hear me?" And he's like, "Oh, you don't hear that?" And then he said, "A expletive, bad word, horrible word, probably the worst word besides the C word that you could use. Like, those two words are up there at the top of words never to say to anyone or ever. Just never say it ever. Two words, never say ever. That word and the C word. N word, C word. Two words, never, never, ever, ever say. Never, ever. So Kyle Larson says this. It may not seem bad. Problem is, Connor Daly is streaming. Joseph Newgarden's streaming. This other guy is streaming. There's like 4 or 5 streams going on. All right? So those people that aren't watching the NASCAR broadcast are watching those streams. There's probably thousands of people watching just among those streams. Those people heard it. So many people heard it. It's clipped on Twitch now. It's out there on Twitter. It's out there on Discord. It's everywhere. Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Instagram. Any social media site that is currently in use, it is on there. Kyle Larson saying the N word. Oh boy. Oh boy. You don't say that. He didn't even say it with an A. He said it with a hard ER. That's worse. If he said it with an A, you can kind of just be like, even though it's still not good for him to say it, no matter, what he used, an A or an ER. At least an A is a little bit better than an ER, but it's still not good, especially if you're Kyle Larson. Um, so that gets brought out, and the next day, NASCAR's like, "Hey, Kyle, you're suspended until you complete this sensitivity training program, where it's basically just like, hey, don't do this, don't do that, whatever, don't be like this." So now he has to go through that. Chip Ganassi Racing goes and says, "We're suspending Kyle Larson without pay until further notice." But at that moment, it was just like, okay, so he's going to probably maybe miss a race or two. Jeremy Clements had the same thing happen in 2013. He said the N word, had to go through the sensitivity training program, got suspended for 2 races, but then got back into the car and is still driving and won at Road America. Everyone celebrated it as one of the best things happened in the Xfinity Series. Um, Problem for Kyle Larson is that he has some major companies backing him. Jeremy Clements has what, repairablevehicles.com or something like that, a thing that if Jeremy Clements said the N word and they continue to sponsor him, it's not like major sales decreases would happen or it would get out on the news like, oh, repairablevehicles.com is supporting a racist. And also, it was 2013, which is a lot different than 2020. 7 years makes a lot of difference. So here we are, 2020. Kyle Larson used the N word with sponsors like Credit One Bank, McDonald's, First Data, Clover, all these huge companies that are sponsoring Kyle Larson. McDonald's is like, yeah, no, we can't, and they pulled out. Credit One Bank at first was like, we support Kyle, we support what Chip Ganassi Racing and NASCAR have done. We'll continue to monitor the situation. And as they're monitoring the situation, they later released a statement, same statement, except at the end of it, they said we have terminated our sponsorship with Kyle Larson. All right, Kyle. So you have First Data and Clover. Oh nope, you don't have them left because they fall under the same branch. They're subsidiaries or whatever you call that to this bigger company, and that company is like, yeah, no, we don't want it. So they terminated their sponsorship with Larson. So it's like, okay, Kyle, you really don't have anything left anymore. Credit One left you, McDonald's left you, First Data and Clover have left you. You really don't have anything else. And oh, by the way, your Coke sponsorship got terminated earlier in before the season started for no reason. We don't really know why. It just was quietly done. He wasn't a Coke driver this season. We don't know why, but it just got terminated for some reason. And it wasn't due to this because it was long before this happened. So now Kyle has no sponsors. Chip Ganassi Racing has no choice but to be like, we can't, we can't. We can't have you. And they fired Kyle Larson. Kyle Larson no longer a Chip Ganassi Racing driver. Chevrolet said, yeah, our personal agreement with Kyle Larson, we terminated that. You're no longer a personal Chevy driver. Um, which I don't know if that means he's not driving a Chevy or if that means you're not doing any endorsements for Chevy. You're not going to be in a big name Chevy car for a long time. So now Kyle has nothing except his dirt team. Oh, by the way, his dirt team also gets backing from Chevrolet, so now he can't be in a Chevy dirt car, unless he does it by himself. Lucas Oil, who is a big sponsor for him, I believe dropped him, so now he only has some really small like Finley Farms or something like that. He has that to back him, and only that. So at this point, unless a team picks him up with already sponsors, he's not getting a good quality NASCAR ride with without a sponsor saying we want him. And is a sponsor going to say we want him? Probably not. Not until a long time from now. The best thing for Kyle Larson to do right now would be go down to dirt, lay low there, and then try and make a comeback if he wants to. But at this point, his NASCAR Cup career is over unless something happens. I mean, if Stewart Haas Racing picks him up and says, "Hey Haas, we're gonna sponsor him," maybe. But I mean, he brings no sponsorship, so a team's gonna have a sponsor with them. And even if the team owner wants him, so say like if Rick Hendrick, we want Kyle Larson, but if the sponsor doesn't want him, then Rick Hendrick can't hire him. It's the same thing for Chip Ganassi Racing. Don't think that Chip did not want Kyle Larson to stay, because he probably absolutely wanted Larson to stay. But all the sponsors were like, "We'll continue to support you, Chip, but it's gonna have to be without Kyle Larson in the car." So Chip was like, "Well, we don't really have a choice. We have no sponsors. All the sponsors that said they would stay with us, they're gone now. So now we need to have someone else in the car. Probably going to be Ross Chastain. He's obviously at the top of the barrel. Obviously, Advent Health has sponsored him. I'm sure Credit One and McDonald's and all of them would be like, all right, Ross, you're cool. Come in." Um, so yeah, I did say a horrible humor joke last night. I don't really know if I want to repeat it, but I basically, with Larson losing everything because he said the N word, obviously. Um, I said that maybe he would have been better off going. I can't really say It's a horrible joke, but if you know NASCAR and you've watched NASCAR since 2014, you'll probably know what I talked about. 2014, a driver did a certain something, took the season off, or took a few races off, then came back and still had his sponsors. Um, so I said Larson would have been better off doing bleep rather than saying the N word, um, which sucks, but it is what it is, and can't say that. Just can't say it. And I know he wasn't trying to be derogatory towards anyone and be like saying it towards anyone. He was saying it as a quote joke, but you just can't. You just can't say it. And the fact that he was saying it as a joke in a mic test and how it rolled off the tongue makes me assume that he said it before. I mean, honestly, if you say it like that, it's so off the tongue. And it just came right off the tongue. It's like if Kyle Busch were to say, "You son of a bitch," or "dumb son of a bitch." It rolls off the tongue for Kyle Busch. He says it a ton. For Kyle Larson, if it rolls off the tongue, that he has to have said it before. And obviously it's not in public, but he's had to have said it in private before to people, to friends, to whatever it is. Um, so Kyle Larson's life has fallen apart. NASCAR's season has fallen apart. Not only did the hype train for real life racing stop, now we've had two iRacing incidents that have really been like, all right, this is just starting to get too serious now. Like, this is really starting to get horrible. Like, no one can control themselves. You have, oh my God, so much momentum entering the season. It's all just ruined. And now, NASCAR, who for the longest time, for the past 20, 30 years, has been trying to be like, we're not a redneck sport. We support everyone. Look at this. We have Bubba Wallace, Kyle Larson. We have women racing. And now let's just set the sport back because Kyle Larson said a word. People are now going to be like, oh, NASCAR drivers. Even though Larson's from California, NASCAR's still a southern sport. So they're going to be like, those rednecks down there, NASCAR fans, NASCAR drivers, they're all racist. And then our sponsors could be like, well, we don't want that. And our full sponsors going to pull out of not only Larson, but the sport. Is a sponsor going to be like, yeah, we don't want it, and pull out? I mean, there's so much that has happened in 2020, and it's insane. 2020 is a crazy year, man. Just slow down. Um, yeah, so NASCAR's momentum, NASCAR's hype has burned, crashed and burned. As I said, NASCAR season has crashed and burned. Um, it's bad. We'll see when everything returns to normal what happens. I mean, right now I'm just so confused. It's my head's spinning. There's so much happening. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if in the next iRacing race, like something else happens where more drivers get suspended or something because that's the year 2020 is and how NASCAR's season has been going so far. So a little bit of a longer video, but there's a lot to discuss. From the momentum you had from Speed Weeks and the ratings, and then the rain, and then four good races, and then the COVID-19, and now iRacing and how iRacing was successful, and then the bad race at Bristol, and then Bubba Wallace losing a sponsor, and then Kyle Larson losing everything. It's insane. So thanks everyone for watching. I'll see you guys for the next video.